How do you link national treasure and much-loved wildlife presenter David Attenborough with one of the most notorious murders in Victorian Britain? Well, I'll tell you, but it's gonna get grisly, so if that's just not for you, then you keep on scrolling. For anyone else that's still waiting around, let's get into it. Now, the poor person who was murdered was this person here, Mrs. Julia Martha Thomas, who was twice widowed, living in Richmond in her 50s when she was murdered in 1879. And she was murdered by this person here, Kate Webster, her servant. Now, it wasn't really the murder that caught all of the media attention. It was what Kate did after the murder, what she did with the body. But before we get to that, a bit of background on who Kate Webster was. Kate was 30 at the time of the murder, and she'd originally come from Ireland, and she was a lady with a really troubled past. She was one of those people that just pathologically lies about everything. You can never really trust them. She also had a really long history of thieving. She thieved all the time. She did numerous prison stints for it, and she would use multiple aliases all over the place, and she kind of bandied around Britain once she'd come over from Ireland. She ended up in London after several prison stints with an illegitimate son, where she tried her hand at domestic servitude. She also had a real problem with the drink. In March 1879, Mrs. Thomas had tried to dismiss Kate Webster from her employee. She just got fed up with the drink, and she was just not a good employee, as you can well imagine. And we know what happened next, because eventually Kate confessed to the whole thing. And this is what she said happened. I'll get it the way you can pause to read. Kate said they got into an argument and she pushed her down the stairs, and then just to make sure that she'd really finished her off, she strangled her at the end of it as well. I told you it was going to be grim. But then things get really nasty. In order to try and conceal the crime, Kate came up with this plan. I'll get out of the way so you can read it. To try and conceal the crime, Kate stuffed the body into a copper laundry pot like this one. Of course, she had to try and dismember it first, and she couldn't fit everything in, so the head and a foot were left out. After she'd boiled the body up, she wrapped the remains in cloth and lobbed it into the Thames. There's unconfirmed stories that she sold the fat to various kids in the neighbourhood, because they really did used to have lard and dripping back then, but we don't know if that's actually true. For 2 weeks after the murder, Kate swanned around pretending that she was Mrs. Thomas, selling her things, wearing her clothes, and just getting as much out of this as she could do. But it wasn't going to last. Eventually she was rumbled, and then she fled back to Ireland. When the police got to the house searching for Mrs. Thomas, they found clear evidence of a body, and put out a warrant for Kate's arrest. But she was soon arrested by the Irish authorities and deported back to England. On the 29th of July 1879, Kate Webster was executed for the murder of Mrs. Thomas. Her son was sent to live in a workhouse. Most of Mrs. Thomas's body was found, but not the head that Kate had buried. And it remained undiscovered until 2010, when it was finally dug up in David Attenborough's back garden. Yes, really. Researchers from Edinburgh University were able to prove the age of the skull, the injuries that it sustained, and it was eventually proved to be the skull of Mrs. Thomas. And finally closing the case 131 years later.